Hey, it's America's Supermom. Thank you for joining me on my podcast. This series is the Corona Chronicles. I created this so that we would have an outlet of positivity in the midst of a lot of negativity. You know what I'm talking about. All the news, the fear around this virus, how it can affect us, what the new normal is looking like, and how so many things have changed that a lot of people feel like um, it is the end of the world, so to speak. So, this podcast was created so that those of us who have hope, who are willing to move forward with this new normal and innovate new things that will help us to be creative and positive. That is what this platform is for us to come together and share that positivity and that light with those who may need it. So if you're interested in sharing your insight, please reach out because we can never have enough positive news. So sit back and enjoy the show.
So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really excited about my next guest, Curt Hammitt. We actually met on a LinkedIn Live. So we both were on the LinkedIn Live watching the broadcast, and we were able to reach out and connect with one another during that time. So since then, we've had a Zoom call and have continued to introduce different people to each other based on the type of businesses that we are pursuing. And I'm really excited to have him today to share his insights. So at this time, I'm going to give Curt the opportunity to introduce himself.
Thanks, Lachelle. Hi, everybody. I'm Curt Hammitt. This is my LinkedIn summary. I'm a super connector. I bring people to companies, and people to opportunities. And it thrills me to see and hear the synergy between a job seeker and opportunity. An example is when a candidate has researched and prepared for their interview and speaks directly to the hiring manager's problems, offering insight, strategy, and possible solutions to their problems. Why do I do what I do? Well, I feel that every person deserves to know how to properly prepare for their job search. As a baby boomer, I can relate to the angst, the frustration, and the lostness some of our baby boomer colleagues are facing in job search right now. On the flip side, I help college students prepare for their job search by volunteering at their career readiness programs. I teach graduates and other adult professionals how to find a job on their own, building and refining valuable skills they will use throughout their lifetime. In the community, I use one-on-one and virtual group sessions. I teach how to optimize your profile on LinkedIn, refresh your resume, and offer ways of crafting stellar responses to interviewing questions to propel you to the top of the candidate pool. I'm frequently seen making new connections at networking events and job fairs. I identify and fill the gaps in your job search process, and I build your confidence while holding you accountable and keep you moving forward. I'm founder and owner of Propel Your Career LLC in Chesterfield, Virginia. I've recently added national recruiting to my list of offered services. I'm married, have 3 grown children, and you might occasionally see me in the neighborhood walking my dog and making more connections because I love making connections. So that's me, Curt Hammitt, Propel Your Career.
That is awesome. And definitely sounds like exactly what a lot of people need today, because we are in this space of where people have to reinvent themselves, or, we have a kind of a dismal outlook with some of these college graduates, from what they anticipated moving into before this global pandemic. So for somebody who is struggling, regardless of age or industry, what advice would you give them in, first of all, trying to be marketable in a
Absolutely. Well, it's all about, everybody says it's your brand. Well, you really need to know what you like to do, what you do well, and what you want to do again. You need to be very tight on who you're trying to reach and who are your customers, so to speak. Once you have that foundation established, then you can build upon that. But there is the hidden job market out there, and I mean, it's out there, but it's not going to be found published on social media. Only 2 out of 8, only 2 out of 10 jobs are actually posted anywhere. The other 8 jobs are what we call hidden. And the only way to find them is to connect, talk to people, let people know that you're in job search, let them know that you are their target company, why they are your target company. It's a lot of work. You know, I've never worked so hard in my life as to when I was in job search. And it is truly a 24/7, job to establish your identity and to learn about what you want to know about the company that you want to work for. And I've done that. So I'm not telling you something that I've not done. And so I was interested in a company and just connected with an individual, and we had coffee. This was a couple of years ago, and just said, okay, what's it really like working there? You know, I can read, their website, and I can see what they're saying in the news, but I really wanted to know, okay, what's the scoop on really how to get a job in there? Would you do the same thing again? Would you work for them again? What keeps you there? What would make you leave? So there's a lot that goes into it, and I know it can be overwhelming. I had a client this morning, and she's been hit with a fire hose. I said it's like being hit with a water hose off the fire truck. There's just so much information, and what I do is I come alongside you and help navigate that process.
That's good. Now, so this is great to recognize that a lot of these positions are through actual connections. So we hear a lot about, being connectors, and for many of us who are listening, maybe we're like, that's an area we need some help in. So where do we begin when it comes to having these opportunities to start connecting? What do we do to make it?
Sure. Well, you can start with your inner circle. Your inner circle, of course, is your family, your close friends, maybe even your neighbors, if you know your neighbors, and just being vocal about where you are. Be very transparent. Tell them, your elevator speech, tell them what you'd like to do, what you're looking for. I often say that when you're in an introduction, you always tell them what you're doing now, what you did previous to that, and then what you want to do. Because many people are using this time to really craft a new identity for themselves. And so they're testing the waters, and they're talking to people. They're getting information about, that next career. So start with that inner circle. Then it's friends. Then it may be colleagues that you have either following or followers on LinkedIn, or people in your social community, in your church, your synagogue, your temple. It could be at the Y, at the swimming pool. I know a lot of those places are really reduced or even closed right now, but it doesn't keep you from connecting either 6 feet apart or connecting virtually online. Of course, as you continue to connect, you want to connect to people that are in your sphere, meaning that are doing what you do or doing what you would like to do. They're in your target business or your target company or your target industry. So I went from a very technical field in IT to career coaching. So I did what's called a career pivot. So I had to take on new skills and grow in areas that I only had touched the water, so to speak, in my previous career, and now I'm doing a lot more of now. So you really need to understand, do you want to go back out into the working world doing what you were doing, or do you want to go out a little different? And so I call them my transition jobs. Maybe you want to take a transition jobs and just explore, what's it like for 3 months, 6 months. It's not forever. but it will give you a taste of what working in that environment is actually like. So that's what I did. So I had 4 gig jobs in a matter of 3 years. And so I was able to work at some state agencies, at a financial institution, and in a staffing agency, just to get my feet wet, so to speak, and to see what it's like to work in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it also helped
Very good.
help strengthen my skills, reinforce some of the things, as well as allow me new contacts in areas that I had never ventured in before. When you work for a corporation your entire career, you're pretty much in that bubble. And until you leave that bubble, do you realize that there's a whole another world out there? And so I'm a transplant to Richmond. So I really didn't know anything outside that corporate bubble until I left my job in September or in March of 2015.
That's great. Now, so let's walk someone through the process of, there's a post that's on LinkedIn, or maybe it's on some other job board or something like that. What is the best course of action for somebody to take so they see that it's something they might be interested in, they're qualified for? What is that process? Because for some people, they haven't had to get a job in years. They've been in their industry for, over 20 years. And that process back then is different now virtually. So for somebody who is answering a post or something like that, can you walk us through that process from start to finish, or to the interview, so we can see what we should
Excellent.
be doing?
Yes, excellent question. Excellent question. What I always tell my folks to do is to, if the job is listed and you know the company that the job is for, go to the company page and find the job there. If you find the job on the company page, then I want to say it's legitimate. I mean, there are jobs that get posted on job boards that are placeholders, that the agency wants to accumulate resumes. So the job really doesn't exist. You're never going to hear back. Only 3% ever hear back from jobs applied online. So you're wasting your time. I call it the black hole. You're wasting your time spending hours redoing your resume to match the job description, sending it to the black hole, and you're never hearing back. So I've just talked with a young college graduate, and he was going through the same thing. And so I'm going to follow up with him after the call to say, yes, stop. I told him that already in a post. Stop applying. What you need to do is first see if the company has the job posted on their site. Now, some companies do not have a job posting site on their company page, which is fine. I get it. They actually do use Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, some of these other job boards, which is fine. So just because it's not on their company page doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So what you do, you go to your LinkedIn, you go in the search bar and you type in the company and you find people, because you can look, if you type in that company name, you can look for people that work there. Then you can even further refine the search by looking at people in your niche. So is it accounting? Is it law? Is it IT? Is it banking? What is the niche that company does, and what function, what group do you want to work in? So once you have identified a few people, and I get it, because LinkedIn limits how many searches you can do in a month. And this is really key, because if you're on the free version of LinkedIn, you will only get so many searches per month. And so I have experience with that, so that, by mid-month, I have maxed out my searches. So I've had to go to a paid version of LinkedIn, which is level 2, which is about $50 a month, to give me unlimited searching. Because as a coach, I want to be able to search the globe for clients as well as candidates for the jobs that I'm recruiting for. because I'm a coach and a recruiter. So once you have LinkedIn and LinkedIn is giving you some candidates, you reach out with an introduction. You want to introduce yourself. You just don't want to connect without saying something. So you want to personalize the invitation, and you say who you are. You say, I see that you work at such and such place. You're in such and such department. That happens to be my field. I'm looking to. You don't want to say necessarily you're looking for a job. You're doing some research about your company and your industry. Maybe it's the same industry you're in. Maybe it's a new industry you've never worked in before. So you're gathering information. You're doing research. There's different ways to do research, and you're just using this one right now to touch base with this person and just asking for a phone call or a web meeting, for 15 minutes, because you've got a couple questions that you'd like to ask that individual. So once you've set that up, if they agree to connect, and you set that up and you have the call, then you've got a series of questions that you'd want to ask them that will give you answers to the questions that you have about working in that role in that company. As you develop relationships with others in the company, you ultimately want to find out who is the hiring manager for the job that's posted. So somewhere in that mix of conversations, you are going to try to find out. You may not find out, but you want to find the hiring manager, because they have the key strings, or one of the strings that will be necessary to be pulled to bring you in for the interview. The only reason for your resume is to get an interview. So if your resume is not getting you interviews, then something's wrong with your resume. If your resume gets you the interview, but the interview is not landing you a job, then something's either wrong with your resume or something's wrong with your LinkedIn profile that doesn't harmonize itself with the job that you're looking for. So now that you've met some people there, and now that you perhaps have met the hiring manager, this is a great question, because I had all this written up. I'm going to be posting this probably today or tomorrow on how to do this.
Oh, okay.
So once you have the connection, you have, on your downtime, you've been doing other research. So you have been listening to the CEO or the COO. That's Chief Executive Officer, Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, CIO, Chief Information Officer, any of the chief C-suite people that are on TED Talks, that are on webcasts, that are out there with videos, with content. What your job right now is to learn as much as you can about the company, about the people that work there, about why they work there, about the environment, and see if it's, because you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, Michelle. So it's really a two-way street. So once you've identified key people there, and perhaps you now have gotten your research to the point that you have found their pain points. When they did their annual report back in probably third or fourth quarter of 2019, they had no clue what was going to happen in 2020. Well, they were projecting what they were going to do in 2020. So they had put in their annual report for 2019 their projections for 2020. Well, come February, March, everything turns upside down with this pandemic. So now that we're sitting here in August, looking at, hopefully we can get through the year without a second wave, but they need to meet their profit objective and keep their stakeholders happy. So a lot of layoffs is being done right now, because that will lower their spending so they can show a profit this year. So that's the bulk of the reasons why there could be another wave of layoffs. And I'm seeing an uptick right now in my business. I just had one yesterday. A client that I had, weeks or months ago had gotten laid off. And so he reached out to me. And so I've got, I put a post out there for my business that if but if I've worked for you in the past, please reach out to me, because I want to help you, with a contact name, with some information that I can get you to speed your search process. So now that you've identified the pain points, you may have also put together some options or some suggestions or some insight that you have gleaned through your career that you have now written up. So what you will do now is that influencer that you know at that company, you're going to hand that influencer both your resume, perhaps your cover letter, as well as your research that solves their problems. And you're going to ask that contact, that influencer, to please hand deliver that packet to the hiring manager. You're bypassing HR, you're bypassing the applicant tracking system or the ATS system, you're bypassing that initial screening interview, and you are going straight to the hiring manager. The hiring manager, he or she is going to read this document that you've done, your research, identifying in detail the problems that you've researched and the solutions, the suggestions that you've made. And they're going to say, wow, we need to get Curt in here on the next interview process that we can. So you are then going to bypass and short circuit the process that's broken, and you're going to go directly with an appointment with the hiring manager. I mean, that's the way it should work. And if I can, Lachelle, I'll tell you a story of one that worked very similar to that. Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, when I left working at one of the state agencies here in Virginia, I went to work for a financial institution. And about halfway through that 12-month assignment, the executive director, she contacts me and says, hey, I see you're working at XYZ company. I said, yes, how can I help you? When the executive director from a former employer contacts you, you take notice. So I was really excited to hear what she had in mind. And she said, well, my son is a scholar athlete from William and Mary, and he's a accounting finance major, his undergrad and master's, and he's looking to get a job in one of the top financial companies in the United States. Can you talk with him? Can you get him maybe an interview at your company? And I said, well, okay, let me contact him and we'll see what I can do. So what I did is I contacted him and got his resume, had a phone call just like I'm doing with you, Lachelle, and then say, well, let's meet face to face. I met face to face and I said, okay, who do you want to meet at what company? So he said, well, I want to meet the hiring managers or want to meet somebody of influence at some of these top financial companies. So I said, okay, got it. So I went back home, sat in front of my computer, looked on my LinkedIn, scanned who I knew at his short list of companies, found somebody who was a colleague of mine, and we worked in another state at that time. He had since left the company, was working for now one of these top accounting firms. So I reached out to him and said, hey, could you have some time to talk with my friend who would like to understand what it's like working here? So he said, sure, let's connect. Well, Lachelle, short story or long story short, my client ends up getting a job at the same company working out of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So I had that as my story in LinkedIn for a season because it was the textbook case of how your networking process is supposed to work. That it's somebody reaching out on behalf of somebody else who then I sat down with, made a connection. That connection, synced up with him, and those two gentlemen, were successful in working together. And this individual, was hired by them in a different location, but was now working for his one of his dream companies. And he was there for 2 years, and he joined, I think, another one of his dream companies. So I mean, he's moving upward, and he's staying at the same caliber of employer, which is what he wanted to do. So I mean, this was not a small company, so it's like my challenge, you said, what do you want to do? Or how do you get through this process? Sure, there's opportunities at large companies, medium-sized, small companies. You might even be better off with a small company because you're going to wear a lot more hats. You're going to be exposed to a lot more things than trying to get into the big company that everybody else wants to get into. But it's not impossible. It is possible. I have seen it happen. I know of other instances where it's happened, and it's not rocket science, but it does take work.
Yeah.
And so does spending 45 minutes to 2 hours filling out applications for one job that you're not going to hear back from takes a lot of work.
Right.
Whereas this, you've zeroed in on a company or at least on a position for, my background was in IT. So I could do IT because every company has some form of IT, information technology. So, when I left my former corporate career, I wanted to work with a company where I could use some of those skills, maybe not all of them, but some of them, because these were some transition jobs that I was taking. So once you have that interview, of course, you'll want to thank them. You'll want to, within 24 to 48 hours, follow up with a text message saying, appreciate the time. Of course, you want to send a message, a unique message to everyone you spoke to in the interview, whether it was one-on-one, one-on-two, one on a panel interview. You'll want to get all those emails and send them a thank you. You would want to then also attach the URL of a article, a podcast, something that they would find value for. Remember, it's not about you finding a job, it's about you solving their problem. So you always want to deliver value. So even in your thank you, deliver value. In your cover letter, it's not about you wanting a job, it's the value you're going to bring to them. So they can't help but want you to come work for them. It's all about them. You're solving a problem for them. So you've got to get out of the bubble that, no, I need a job. Well, if you look at a coin, there's two sides. So one side is you needing a job. The other side is the company that has a problem. And you are the solution provider for that problem. That's the side of the coin that you need to address.
That's good.
And when you get that coin, you're going to get the job because you solved the problem. They can't afford to let you go. They're thrilled that you found a way into and through the system and around the system to make it happen.
That's awesome. Now, so, knowing what you're dealing with every day, the type of different industries, being able to connect to people, you're in somewhat of a growth mindset. It's like you're not in your comfort zone. A lot of times you have to kind of do things that are cutting edge. You have to get used to new technology, different ways to pivot in, with changes as they arise. So what do you do in your daily routine that helps you stay solution oriented and goal?
Solution and goal oriented. You've just drawn the target on the wall. And again, that is one thing that you need to stay focused on, is the target and how can I get there quicker, faster, better than perhaps maybe the next person. So even though I pivoted to a new field, especially because I pivoted to a new field, I need to be on par with those that have been doing what I'm doing for 20 years. I've been doing it for 2.5 years officially, but I'm a connector and I've been connecting for people my entire career. So I'm building on the strengths I already have. Plus I'm going to be spending the rest of this week, in fact, in a training class to build my skill on how to find clients for my business, because that's been one of the things that, fortunately, they've been coming to me, which is great. So I'm doing something right. But I want to do even better. And so there's always room for improvement. And so that's what I'm doing. I have read, a number of books on either personal development or education or how to market yourself. Just because I'm in a field that I've not spent much time in, although remote work I've spent a lot of my time in, because I have been on global projects a lot of my career, or regional projects in the US, where we were doing data center consolidations, we were doing help desk consolidations, I was managing projects globally. And so I was always on the phone. I always felt I was on the short end of the stick because I couldn't see the body language. All I could do was hear the voice. So when you've got 5 people, and all of them want to talk, if you don't identify yourself before you speak, that is a detriment to the person that's on the phone, because they're trying to not only hear with understanding and clarity the message that you're trying to get across or the point you're trying to say, but you're trying to put a voice to a name and to a role. And not being in the room has been a barrier that I have well overcome. And so those people now that have been thrown into having to work this way since March, I can just imagine that they have had to stand on their head in order to get some of this stuff done. So now,
Right.
I'm still learning, Anchor, that the platform that we're on, that's something new. So I'm always learning and always open to learn, new tools, meet new people all the time, read new books. Fortunately, I can't go to the library, so I can download things to read. I've got books that I've read that I'm rereading. I like to engage with people online and to read what they've written, and I'm writing my own, because a lot of the top coaches may be connected to other coaches, but you're seeing them distribute content. And so what I did is I had an 11-week series that I sent out every Tuesday, and it was how I did my pivot. Exactly what we talked about today is how I went from my corporate career to doing what I'm doing now. So that's on my website. And so there's tools and tips and tricks and everything that's out there that is available, for your taking and for using. Because I believe that everybody deserves how to find a job, in this market, and anything that I can do to help, I want to be there to help them.
That's good. Now, so give us a couple book titles that people could, begin to look at to kind of, I don't know if it's just something that could help them pivot, in their industry, or just being able to approach problems, in a unique way, present their solutions to people's problems, or even just something to help build their confidence and know how to position themselves. So any book that kind of stands out to you would be great.
I'm going through my bookcase right now.
Okay.
There's a networking event that I went to that is affiliated with Randolph-Macon College here in Richmond. And I met an author, his name's Adam Vasquez, Vasquez, and he wrote a book called The Origin of Markets, but the title of the book is called Toothfish, Toothfish. And he does not know that I'm going to give him a plug, but I'm going to give him a plug on his book. And he said that in order to be successful, you need to be at the top of your niche. That I am a career coach. I've only been doing it for 2.5 years. If you are looking for a career coach and you see Curt's doing it, well, who do you go to? You go to the top person in Richmond that's a career coach and ask for help from them, because you want the very best. So no matter what I do on social media as a career coach, I am promoting the top person in my region, the top person who is known for being a career coach. So what Toothfish was a fish that used to be caught and thrown away until somebody tasted it. Once they tasted it, they said, oh my gosh, we need to get this in some of the top restaurants. We'll change the name and everybody will want to buy it. And that's what they did. So it immediately became not just another piece of seafood, but it became a gourmet, piece de resistance, so to speak, in the food industry. So too, it's like, what makes you a niche? And so, I continue to grow and morph into who is the best niche that I can be in doing what I'm doing. But it's interesting that you have to be the top. And in coaching, I just talked about what have I learned? Well, I've learned that there's high-end coaches and there's low-end coaches and there's not much in the middle. So as a coach, unfortunately, you're dealing with high price coaching, or you're dealing with probably lower price coaching. But for me, I want to help. It doesn't matter. I see this as part of my mission, is to help people understand how to find a job. So Toothfish by Adam Vasquez, short little book, easy to read. I think I read it in one night, which is amazing for me. But it's really a step-by-step process. Not unlike what I did on my website, but if you do exactly what he says, you could actually be one of those stellar niche people that people will run to you because of what you do. Okay. The other one, a recruiter gave me one. It's called Acing the Interview. How to ask and answer the questions that will get you the job. And the author is Tony Beshara, Beshara, Acing the Interview. And the recruiter she said the best caveat in that entire book was this question that you ask in an interview of your interviewer. Now, whether it's the hiring manager or whether it's just a peer in the company, you say, what can I do for you, Lachelle, so that you get a gold star on your performance review from your manager this year? I want to help you. Did you see how I spun that? I asked you a question about you. What can I do for you, Lachelle, so that your manager will give you a gold star? And they're going to say, I have not thought about that. So, but I've got probably 5 or 6 questions like that I give to my clients that really turn it back on them to say, I'm interviewing you, and so I want to find out what makes you tick, why you're here, why I'm talking to you, and how long have you been here, and why you're staying. So that was a real good book that I still dip back into now and then. And of course, one of those great, very polished coaches is Brendan Burchard, Burchard. His High Performing Habits. I got his book, and I said if I was in my 30s, I would, no doubt embrace his entire strategy. But I'm not in my 30s, but I still want to have some fun and still want to help people. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so, but his book, again, was very, very impactful. Plus I, got his video and was taking training, through him, where he was speaking to me through his video series. So there again, it's books as well as some of the associated media that's out there that really helped me better define who I am, better define my why, see how other people define their why. I love Simon Sinek and his book on why. I've read that. I've seen his podcast. Those people that are struggling with job search, they may not be focusing on their why. They may be going down a path that their spouse, their child, their parent, their friend said, oh, well, you should do X, Y, Z. Yeah, but I've been doing XYZ my entire career and I want to get out. I want to do ABC, not XYZ. So, you have one life to live. So let's do what you want to do and let the naysayers be out there, because you are on target to go after what you want to be in that niche role that no one else can do better than you. And that's, Lachelle, the short time that we've had together. I love your voice. I love your warmth. It comes through in every conversation we have. I love the willingness to bring somebody that you just met onto your podcast, because your brand's at stake, with every person you bring on. And so I'm just very grateful and just want to say thank you publicly for this opportunity.
Oh, I definitely, appreciate those kind words. And, it's like produces like. You kind of know people when you talk to them, if they resonate with you, and, if there's a connection, whether it be professionally or just with the mindset. And I think that's so important for people to really not take those connections lightly, because especially now, there's so much uncertainty and things that you have to transition through. And sometimes we can get in our own way because we're, being real skeptical or holding back, and we miss a lot of unique opportunities to create new projects and things
That's
of that
right.
nature.
That's right. There's only one human race, and there's so much, uniqueness, diversity, in all of us, that I just, every day I meet somebody new. It's a thrill. It's a thrill. I have to tell you a quick story. I was walking the dog, which I do a lot, and, went down the street and met this new neighbor, because we're in a brand new community. People are always moving in, and found out where he worked. I said, oh, it's kind of in my old niche. And so guess who called me and said, he's thinking of doing something else. So I said, okay. So I talked with him yesterday about his resume, and we're going to have a follow-up. But it's like you nailed it, Lachelle. It's building those meaningful relationships that are in your LinkedIn, that will support you, that will promote you, and that you can feed into their lives, they can feed into your lives, and you all are richer for it.
So true. I love that. Well, what is the best way? You've got some great tips. I've got like 4 pages of notes. So what is the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Sure, that's great. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Curt Hammitt, and my web page is Propel Your Career, all one word, propel with one L, yourcareer.site, site123.me, M-E. Now you might think, what is Site 123? Well, Site 123 is a free website. And again, one of my mission is to show people that you can run a business, I want to say on a shoestring. You can run a business and be effective and productive. And so I'm using myself as an example that there's not a lot of bells and whistles, but yet I have paying customers that come through my website all the time. So there is a contact page there that you can send me a quick email through my contact page on my website. Or you could send it to my company email, which is propelyourcareerllc@gmail.com. There again, just using the public Gmail system. So that's how you can reach me. Because I'd rather have it in writing that way than give you my phone number.
I definitely understand.
But and you don't have to be in the greater Richmond area at all. I have clients all over the globe. I spoke with somebody from Sri Lanka a couple weeks ago, and I just felt, wow, this day and age, and I'm helping someone in Sri Lanka with their job search. It just blew me away.
Awesome. Well, this has just been wonderful, and I really appreciate all your insight and words of wisdom. So, in closing, what are some final remarks that you would like to share with the audience?
I have value for people that speak from their heart and speak from experience. So when you sign up for a coach, they may have the training, they may have the certification, they may have been through a couple jobs, they may have been through the school of hard knocks. And so they're going to be teaching you what they have learned. And so there's an element of trust in there. But I feel that I'm somebody that I would like to earn your trust. And I hope that I have through this podcast.
Hmm.
That the job search, I don't wish it on anybody. It's 6 to 9 months on average to get through it. Many people spend longer than that. With the pandemic, there's a lot more people vying for the same job as you are. So I want to propel your career and move you through this process as fast as possible, really through the preparation process, because I prepare you to launch your own search for your dream job.
Awesome. Well, that is wonderful. Well, we really appreciate it. You have given us so many golden nuggets and definitely a wealth of information that we possibly will have to have you come back and share some more insight because, this is a topic that a lot of times you just can't tackle in one show because there's so many different ways that you could connect and just different pointers. You can never get enough resources when it comes to that. So if that's something you might be available for, we would love to
That'd be
have you
great.
back.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful day and thanks again. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Lachelle.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode. I really enjoy providing content that inspires and challenges us to be a better version of ourselves. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, please email me at info@lachelleadkins.com. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, or my YouTube channel. If there was something in this episode that resonated with you, it probably will resonate with someone else. So please share it. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. But those aha moments, those moments of really getting something and changing your perspective are very, very pivotal in having people change the trajectory of their lives. And so being able to share insightful information so that other people can grow is the easiest thing that we can do as we pay it forward. So again, I want to thank you all for listening. And if you have time, write out a review. Go to iTunes, Anchor, wherever you can find this podcast on any of those platforms and write a review about what impact this episode had on you, what you learned, or whatever. Any feedback is great because it just helps me to understand what content is really beneficial for those that are listening. So again, I want to thank you all for your support and taking the time to spend some time with me and my guests. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.